Miami Dolphins seem to have a bright future, coming off a near playoff miss, going 10-6, and especially after a turnaround going 5-11 in the year before. They seem to have a very good coach in Brian Flores, but this offseason is very important, and this is what I think they should do, so they could be a Super Bowl contender in the near future. Hey YouTube, welcome to the Athletic Nerd. My name is Tyler. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and let's get into it. Better safeties, which I thought was a position they could have addressed in last offseason. But anyway, they do need a new offensive coordinator after the recent one resigned, which I don't think it was a huge loss after they only averaged 23.8 points, and reports did come out that he didn't do a good job developing Tua Tagovailoa, who was the 5th overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft. I do think a few people would be good fits here, such as Ken Dorsey, who was the Bills' cute quarterback coach, which would be a very good option as he has done a great job developing Josh Allen and may be able to replicate those same results with Tua. He also helped develop Cam Newton when he was with the Panthers. Another guy is Mike McDaniel, who is regarded as one of the better football minds, but he is currently the running game coordinator in San Francisco at the time of the recording. But many say that he may even follow Salah to the Jets, who recently got that head coaching job. They can also look at former head coaches such as Doug Peterson if he doesn't get another head coaching job, which a lot of people, he wasn't too bad of a head coach and is a very good offensive mind anyway. And one thing I want to cover is that the reason why they shouldn't get a running back in free agency is because when it comes to that, because before, personally, when I was making this video, I thought Aaron Jones would be a good fit because he is a top running back and he isn't too old. He does provide a lot of value, but he was likely expecting at least $10 million a year, and I'm just not sure that he will really be worth it in the long run, because the Packers did have arguably the best offensive line in football, while the Dolphins do have one of the worst. So I could easily see him being in a similar situation to Le'Veon Bell, where he gets paid a lot of money, but ends up not when it ends up not working out. Well, I do think he will end up being more productive than Le'Veon Bell. I'm just not sure that would be the best fit. But there's still a lot of optimism here. When it comes to the NFL draft, this is a very good class. It seems like they could get Travis Etienne with either their late first round pick, or maybe he might be available early in the second, because it is hard to gauge how valuable a running back seems in draft classes. Najee Harris will also likely be available with either of these picks. There's also depth in this draft class because people like Chuba Hubbard, who was very electric last season, but did have a little bit of a down year this season. There's also me as a biased Carolina fan. There's Javonte Williams and Michael Carter, who are both very good players and will likely be available in their second and third round picks. So, like I said, when it comes to running backs, there's a good amount of players every year who are very productive from the jump, and they could get one of those guys for very cheap compared to Aaron Jones. So, like I said, and they don't have too much cap space. Now, with the third pick in the draft, to adjust the offensive line, I think that they should go with Penei Sewell, a player you might hear a lot on this channel for some of the higher picking teams because he is just that good. He won the Outland Award, which goes to the best offensive lineman in the country, as a sophomore. Now, he did opt out this past season, but he is still considered a generational prospect and would be great to have, especially to protect Tua since he already does have a little bit of an injury history. But if Penei Sewell is taken with the second pick in the draft by the Jets, which is a real possibility, then I think that they could probably trade down some spots and get a wide receiver like this past year's Heisman Trophy winner and Devontae Smith or Jamar Chase if they like him better, or even later down the board if they trade back down that much for a guy like Jalen Waddle. And also just to look at, there is some value in the draft for wide receivers such as Rondale Moore out of Purdue and people like Rashard Bateman out of Minnesota. They could also try to take a risk on a wide receiver like John Ross, who was the 9th overall pick a few years ago. But especially since he'll probably be cheap in free agency, I think he's a low risk, high reward type of guy, especially since they did lack a deep threat last season. But another thing that I would look out for is improving the offensive line in draft, because there are some good interior linemen such as Elijah Vera Tucker out of USC and Christian Darrisaw out of Virginia Tech who could play tackle. But another thing to note there is that they did spend a first-round pick on Austin Jackson last season, who had a decent rookie year. They also spent a lot of money on Eric Flowers, who has been decent at guard. So I'm not sure it's the biggest priority this offseason. And at tight end, they're very good already with Mike Gesicki, so that's not too big of an issue. They also invested a lot on the defensive line last season. And last offseason, with people like Emmanuel Ogbah. I'm just mean like edge rushers too. I'm considering in that category. And they also got Christian Wilkins a few years ago, who has been very good so far, especially as a run stopper. So one of the other main priorities of this team is at the safety position, which is honestly hasn't been that so good so far. I thought that they could have looked at a guy like Xavier McKinney or Grant Delpit instead of Noah Igbinoghene, after they did spend a lot of money on Byron Jones and already had Xavier Howard. Nick Needham had also been good that previous season before last offseason, so I really questioned that pick, but they could certainly address it this season. There are guys such as Andre Sisco out of Syracuse. There's Javon Holland out of Oregon. Both are very good players. And in free agency, they could look for somebody like Marcus May from the Jets, John Johnson III. What a name, might I say. His parents are very creative and have probably worked for the Washington football team, I'm not going to lie. Or they could also look for someone like Carl Joseph, who had played for the Raiders for most of his career and has been very good, just to name a few. But another thing I had to include in the video, you've probably seen the recent news about Deshaun Watson, who might get traded there. And honestly, if I'm in that front office, you have to do it. Because it's not often that you can get arguably a top 3 quarterback in the NFL at all. Because drafting at obviously is extremely rare. And the fact that he's available for a trade, I don't care what you have to give up. Right now, it's rumored to be Tua and both of their first-round picks this year. It may even take additional picks, which would throw this whole video out of the window. But I think it was just something you have to mention, something that has to be taken into consideration, because he is worth it. He is worth it. It's that simple. I honestly, just to talk about Tua, period, I'm not exactly sold on him, because people were talking about how great he reached the peak with Alabama's offense and just the numbers that the team put up as a whole. But that's 4 first-round quality wide receivers he had to throw to, and the fact that Mac Jones, even though the competition when it comes to defense was a little bit worse, the fact that he was able to carry them to at least similar heights, and the fact that he does seem to lack a little bit of arm strength. He doesn't show his mobility enough, and he has been very conservative, where I would be fine giving him up, to be honest. It's just the harsh reality of the situation. And when it comes to the linebacker position, especially after they traded Raekwon McMillan, even though he seems to have been in a contract year, so I would look for people like Chasserat and Cameron McGrone, who will probably be available in the 2nd, 3rd round also. And one final thing I have to say is that the Dolphins do have a very bright future. The team is young. They have a great coach. They have a little bit of cap space and still a lot of draft picks. Hopefully they do invest in this offense a lot more after investing in their defense last offseason. Will probably help them a lot. If they find the right guy at coordinator and can develop Tua, they would be scary and will challenge the Bills for years to come. And side note, I don't expect them to be too aggressive in free agency just because $30 million is not a lot to get some of the higher tier guys, and they do have to re-sign some people in the near future, such as Mike Gesicki, their tight end at Penn State, who has been one of the better young tight ends in the NFL, Emmanuel Ogbah, who had a very good season, and Jerome Baker. And I understand that there are a lot of adjustments that can happen to the cap to make this possible, but it will still be hard to tell. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe. That's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe. It will help a lot. Hit the link in the description or in the top of the comments if you're interested in buying any Dolphins merch.